My name is Renata. I was 34 years old when a car accident put me in the hospital for 11 days. I had one phone call to make before the surgery, and I made it to my best friend, Colette. Colette had been my best friend since college. We had been through everything together: breakups, job losses, my divorce 3 years earlier. She had no children of her own. She used to say she always wanted a son like mine. I trusted her with my life, and in that moment, lying on a stretcher with machines beeping around me, I trusted her with my son's life too. I told her, watch him for me, just until I'm back on my feet. She said, of course. Go take care of yourself. I'll take care of everything else. I remember feeling relief for the first time since the accident. My son, Elias, was 7 years old. I knew Colette adored him. I never imagined that adoration could turn into something else. For the first 3 days, she sent me photos. Elias eating breakfast.
Good morning.
Elias doing homework at her kitchen table.
Breakfast?
Elias asleep with his stuffed dinosaur on her couch. I cried looking at them, grateful that he was safe, grateful that he was loved, grateful that I had someone I could trust completely while I was recovering from surgery I could barely walk after. The nurses told me my recovery was going well.
Completely.
My sister, who
Yes,
lived
that
2
sounds
states
good.
away, offered to
All
fly
right.
in,
Thank
but
you.
I told her
Bye-bye.
not to bother. Colette has it handled, I said. I believed it. I had no reason not to. By day 5, the photos changed. She started calling him my boy in the captions. A photo of Elias in a new jacket, captioned, my boy needed something warmer. A photo of him at the park, captioned, my boy made a new friend today. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I was on pain medication. I was recovering from major surgery. I needed to trust her. That was the story I kept telling myself, even as something in my stomach started to tighten every time I opened her messages. On day 6, I called to check in, and Colette answered sounding strange, almost rehearsed. She told me Elias had asked to call her Aunt Cole forever, not just while I was sick. She laughed when she said it, but it didn't sound like a joke. I told myself it was innocent. Children say things. I let it go. If you've ever had to hand your child to someone else during the hardest week of your life, subscribe now, because what happened next will make you check on the people you trust most. On day 8, I called to say I was being discharged early, 2 days ahead of schedule. Colette didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I called a 3rd time, and it went straight to voicemail. I called my son's school instead, and the front office told me he hadn't been picked up that day. Colette had already picked him up an hour earlier. I discharged myself against medical advice. The doctor argued with me, told me my body needed more time, but I was already pulling my clothes on over my surgical dressing. I took a taxi straight to Colette's apartment, my hands shaking the entire ride, not from pain, but from a fear I couldn't name yet. When she opened the door, my son ran past her legs and into my arms, and he was crying, saying, "Mommy, she said you weren't coming back. She said you were too sick to be my mom anymore." I held him so tight I could feel his heartbeat against mine. Colette stood in that doorway and told me, calmly, that she had already spoken to a lawyer. She said I was unfit. She said a woman who nearly died in a car accident and required weeks of recovery had no business raising a child alone. She said she loved him more than I ever could, and she had the money, the stability, and now the documentation to prove it in court. I stood there in my hospital wristband, holding my son, and I understood that the woman I called my best friend for 15 years had spent 8 days building a case to take him from me. Every photo, every caption, every "my boy" had been evidence she was quietly assembling. I didn't argue with her that day. I picked up Elias and I left, and I went home and I called every family lawyer I could find in the city. I pulled the texts where she called him my boy. I pulled the school records showing she had picked him up without my written permission, which was against the school's own policy. I pulled the photo captions, time-stamped and saved. My lawyer told me something I didn't expect. Colette had already filed paperwork 3 days before I was discharged, requesting emergency temporary guardianship, citing my medical condition and my history of instability after my divorce. She had been building this case before I even knew to be afraid. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. Those 6 weeks were the hardest of my life, harder than the accident itself. I went to therapy for the first time. I documented everything. I made sure Elias saw a counselor too, so there would be a professional record of his well-being under my care, not just my word against hers. On the day of the hearing, Colette brought a folder of photos and a printed list of reasons I was, in her words, not equipped. My lawyer brought the school records, the therapist's notes, and the timeline showing Colette had begun her legal filing while I was still recovering in a hospital bed, unable to speak to a lawyer myself. The judge dismissed her petition in 9 minutes. 9 minutes after 6 weeks of the worst fear I have ever felt. Colette never spoke to me again. She moved apartments within the month. I heard, secondhand, that she tried the same thing with another friend's child a year later, though I never confirmed it myself. And my son, Elias, he still asks sometimes why Aunt Cole doesn't visit anymore. I tell him the truth, slowly, a little more each year, because I never want him to learn to distrust the people who love him. I just want him to know that love and possession are not the same thing, and that his mother came back for him every single time. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments, would you have seen it coming sooner than I did? And subscribe, because next week, I'm telling you about the neighbor who tried to steal my house.